So it's 7:03 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting of the Wakefield Youth Council to order. We're going to start off with attendance. So just say here when I call your name. Yana?
Here.
Ali?
Here.
Thomas?
Here.
Nick Polari? Here yet. Paige?
Here.
Josh? Sophie?
Here.
Ellie?
Here.
Nick? Not here yet. Tegan? Madeline?
Here.
Charlotte? Paige? Oh, she said she can't make it. Matt? Here yet. Bella? Juliana?
Here.
Megan? And Marie? Not here yet. All right. I'm sure some people will still be coming in. Up next, we have public comment. So if there's anybody here from the public wishing to speak, you can unmute or raise your hand. All right. I'm not seeing anybody. Then we have approval of the minutes. So I sent them out today. Did everybody have time to look them over and we feel ready to approve? Any questions or anything on them? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting, which was May 3rd?
I motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. All right. Yana?
Yes.
Ali?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Nick is not here yet. Paige?
Yes.
Sophie?
Yes.
Ellie?
Yes.
Let me see. We're just missing a bunch of people. Tegan? Madeline?
Yes.
Charlotte? And Marie. It's not here. All right. All right. So how's everybody doing? You all doing well? I was gonna say the weather's finally getting nicer, but it's raining. So, but I don't mind the rain. It's all right. All right, so next up, we have a presentation from Mr. Ingalls, who's a school committee member. Thank you to Ali for inviting him as the school committee liaison. And Mr. Ingalls, you're up.
I have to admit, I'm not often addressed so formally. I don't even know, like, when I go to my kids' school stuff. If anyway. So hi, how's everyone doing? Yeah, look good. It's good to see everybody. Thank you, Ali, for inviting me. I don't really have a formal presentation per se. I just thought I would sort of explain a little bit about what school committee does, and then perhaps answer some questions, maybe tell you a little bit about what we're working on currently. So with that in mind, for those of you that don't know, school committee has three major roles in the school district. We are in charge of hiring and firing the superintendent and sort of administration of his duties. We set policy. So we sort of determine what the rules kind of are on a high level within the district. And then we set budget, which is we often hear from educators and persons inside the district what their goals are, what they would like to accomplish within our district that is kind of backdrop against our policies, and then how they seek out funding for that. And then so we help them achieve that and then put that in front of the town. And then the town votes as a whole, which just happened this past Tuesday, and they approved the school budget as part of the whole town budget. So that is essentially what we do in a nutshell from a high level. I probably didn't know as much about school committee before I got on the school committee. So I've been on the school committee for 1 year so far. It's been fantastic, but I really like education. So it's been fun for me. And the way somebody explained it one time is the school committee's job is to tell the district, like the superintendent, where we want to go. And then it's the superintendent's job to steer the ship to get us there. So in that way, so you don't have as direct a hand as some might think, but you kind of set the direction and sort of the atmosphere. which is fun. So, so that is our role. We're currently doing things like we're looking at policies around, well, I sit on the policy subcommittee. So what I do is we've been looking at some digital use policy because what existed currently was a little bit antiquated. It did not take into account all of the sort of the myriad of ways that you can use technology now across multi-layers, like whether it's social platforms, whether it's video, audio trends, different devices. So we tried to sort of capture some of that that technology under a sort of a civic-minded, the existing sort of like an eye care space or mutual respect kind of platform, the stuff that you already know that you've been exposed to, and just transferring that to a digital environment, stuff that I'm sure Mr. Cedrone has already, pounded into your heads. I don't know how often, and he does it really well. So, so kind of putting a policy to that craft, doing some anti-bullying things. We're doing some Title IX stuff, and that's it. We continue to sort of see where we can sort of perfect and make things work a little bit better. We're actually going to start looking at school handbooks, which I'm sure you've all read cover to cover. But often school handbooks come out, we kind of rubber stamp them. I don't, well, previous years, it feels like sometimes they get rubber stamped because they are so thick. Nobody goes cover to cover and compares them against sort of what exists for a policy. So we're going to kind of open them up a little bit, spread them out amongst some of the subcommittee members. Somebody will take a look at elementary schools, which all have the same handbook. Somebody will look at middle school, high school, and then just take a look at them and again, compare them to the existing policies, make sure that things kind of line up. Because you want to make sure if you sort of say this is what we expect, that it's reflected across all levels, so that we have this idea in subcommittees, and then that it makes it all the way down, like through the ecosystem, all the way down to you folks. So, and that's it in a nutshell. It's a lot of meetings, and it would be very dry if it wasn't for sort of all of the student-centered stuff that comes in front of us, and we get to find out all the cool things that are going on. So that's been a lot of fun, and seeing how excited some of your teachers are to sort of present all the great work that's been going on. So that's been awesome. I just subscribed to the Reflections WordPress, and I'm excited to sort of now I'm in the know. So I subscribed to that. I now also get a copy of the Walton newsletter that the students put together. So I try and get myself on all of these distribution lists to like find out all the different stuff that the kids are putting out. Because you guys are amazing. Just as a whole subset of our community, it's very impressive.
Great, thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I guess I'm just wondering, and this is always something that I want to ask school committee members, town council members. I'm wondering what the biggest challenges of your job, but also what feels really rewarding in your position.
Sure. I think I could equate it. Some of the challenges are, if I brought it down to a lower level, it's just some of the same things that happen in my house with my kids. There will be a rule, something will happen, and they will say, why? And I'll be like, you can't know. Like, just because, but why? Just because. There are some things that happen within, like, not just school committee, town council, like bodies, where you have a piece of information that you can't share. You just have to make a decision on it. And then sometimes people feel as though they don't know why, or they feel like it's unfair, or and you have like a mountain of, there's a reason, but you can't tell them. So, or it's not to share. And so that's really hard. Because I think the discourse that happens, the way that we make decisions, the way that we think about things, it's very thoughtful. And there's a lot of sharing of ideas, and there's a lot of good people in the room. And so I think you just kind of hope that that people have that faith, that the right people are sort of in the seats, and that they don't think that the buzzword tends to be transparency, that there's a transparency issue. Because that often is not the case. So that is a huge challenge. the rewards far outweigh the challenges. I've seen so many things, like since I've gotten to sit, I really enjoyed like the math curriculum overview. I really enjoyed the writing overview. I really enjoyed the mental health stuff. I geek out over technology. So when Mr. Weiner gets in front of us, I could talk to him all day. And the counseling stuff, I like all of that. And then making sure that everyone has what they need to sort of do their job appropriately. I know the educators that my kids get in front of are amazing at their jobs. And I see that on every level that I get exposed to. And so making sure that everyone, from the educators to the support staff to, bus drivers to the cafeteria workers, making sure that everybody has what they need to make sure that all of the students in district succeed and have an opportunity.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Madeline, go ahead.
So with us being the youth council, we kind of help out with things around town as the youth's voice. Is there anything in particular that you think that we could be a part of or help with to have a more of a youth voice in something that a lot of times is more adult focused?
Let me think. Well, first off, don't sell yourself short. Your voice is your voice. It's not necessarily a kid voice and an adult voice. Some of the things that the Youth Council has done in the past years have just been amazing. Your Snow Angel program, the cleanup that you did, like I see your stamp everywhere. And so don't short sell yourself. It's great. I'm trying to think of where you would find some interest. I know safe streets is a topic that's coming up, and you have some space into that. But I think maybe championing that a little bit. I know that we have some good partners across the state. I think that there are some town agencies that are looking to sort of do some more with that. And I think Envision Wakefield has some plans for that. I think Wakefield like 2030 has some plans. So maybe, telling people on the community call today, Mr. O'Brien, Tim, was just mentioning that he had noticed an uptick in students riding bikes to school at the Greenwood, at the high school, at the Galvin. And so he's going to install more bike racks and maybe move some to put them in a better spot kind of thing. And so if that's something you're passionate about, sort of how you get yourself to school or how your friends get themselves to school, by all means, I told Tim, I congratulate him from sort of realizing that that was something that needed to be addressed, and he just did it. But if you see that in other spaces, if you recognize that there is a dangerous intersection, if there is a place that, as your high school students, some of you, as you start to drive and you're looking for, it may still be an issue with, if we get a new high school or whatever, but if you're seeing places about ways to park, or even if you're not a high school student, if you're in a car with your parents dropping you off at the Galvin or at the high school, and you notice something that seems unsafe about that space, or you think that you might have a better idea about doing it, by all means, raise a hand or send an email. I would say people would, be more than receptive to that. If you had any thoughts on public transportation, I know that's come up. There are some of our counselors town councilors, I think Jonathan might have been on the list, had signed on to looking into sort of some subsidized transportation options for the MBTA in our town. If that's something that that you'd be interested in, as perhaps I think you might be some of the demographic where people aren't sort of buying cars, so much nowadays, or at least they might be buying them later in life, not so much in their early 20s, but maybe late 20s, 30s. And so you may find yourselves using public transportation more. And so maybe that's something that you might want to, have a hand in. And anything conservation related, because I think our town could always use a little bit of extra voice in the green space sort of planning in our town. And so if there's anyone that can shout really loudly, it's the individuals that stand to inherit, that space. that the long-term benefit there is yours. So
Yeah,
does that answer your question? Sometimes I ramble on, and so by all means, tell me to knock it off. But
yeah, thank you. And you're kind of saying this, but I feel like, and I always say this, in Wakefield, we're so lucky that we have adults that listen and really value the youth perspective, because I feel like in some towns or in some cases, they don't. And I think we're really lucky. We have great teachers, great town officials. So it's something to be really grateful for sure. Right. Anything else from Mr. Ingalls? Right. Anything else from you, Mr. Ingalls?
no, just continue doing what you're doing, and thank you for sort of giving your time and giving yourselves back to your community at such a young age, and recognizing that that's important. And I'm glad that you feel supported. So
I do have a quick question, Mr. Ingalls. I first of all, I really want to thank you as a parent. How many hours a week would you say you're volunteering for the school committee? How many hours would you say average?
ooh, I would say 4, and my wife Myra might say 8. So maybe it's 6.
All right, yeah, that's something that sometimes people don't realize, that and you all do realize that, because you're doing all the work behind the scenes, but it's not just the meetings, it's all the subcommittees and things like that. So thank you again for all your volunteer time and dedication.
Thank you. Happy to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I always forget that most town jobs, like school committee or town council, are not paying jobs, they're volunteer jobs. So that's another thing. It's just like very much unsung heroes. I feel like, get thanked enough for doing that. So, all right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. And I know that Ali will be giving us an update. He'll be presenting at the school committee meeting next week, I believe, or their next meeting with Jenna, about some recap of the youth council stuff, and then maybe some stuff that we're hoping for next term. So we'll look forward to that.
Great. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you. All right. So moving on in the agenda, let me see. Next, speaking of Ali, we have the Communications and Outreach Subcommittee update. So Ali, go ahead.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you for your presentation, Stephen. So the first thing that I want to talk about is we are doing the Meet the Members posts again. So we haven't had that many responses on the form. So if you could all take a moment and fill that out when you have time. Lauren sent that out in an email, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. So so that we can put those, so Madeline can post those on Instagram, because I think that that's a great way to like really promote our members and kind of like showcase who we are. And so some of the stuff that the Communications and Outreach Subcommittee has been, other stuff that we've been recently working on, is we've been promoting our applications. So I worked a little bit with Jen McDonald to craft a digital flyer that we posted on our Instagram. And also another thing that we've been working on with Yana is from the HRC, the mental health and the human rights connection that we're doing on Instagram. So I'm really looking forward to those things. So does anyone have any questions regarding that? All right.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work on that. And Yana, I did see your email about promoting the Human Rights Commission. So I was thinking Madeline and I can do that after tomorrow, once all the applications are in and we kind of sort through those. But that will be done, I promise.
Oh, no worries, no rush at all. I know it's a really complicated time, or like busy time at least.
For sure. Thank you. All right. Anything else for Ali? All right. So next, I'm going to give an update about the Recreation Department Focus Group update. So this happened in the 7th grade project room last Thursday, I believe. We had a really great turnout for attendance. I think a big drive in that was the free pizza and the raffle. I know people are very excited about that because all the pizza got eaten. So that's what it seems like. But we did have really, really great conversation. Ali took some very detailed notes. Ali, if you maybe want to give a little bit of an overview. Yana and I just asked some general questions and some follow-up questions about why people use the courts in the fields, how they think we can get more people to pick up trash, because that was really our main focus with this group. So we talked about maybe hanging up some more signs, getting some more barrels on the field, because they're really only on like in a few corners of the field, and that is just like, it's a long walk. So hopefully having some more barrels there will encourage people to throw out their trash a little bit more. But they seem to really think that signs would help, with maybe like a graphic or a picture of what the fields could look like, but what it does look like with all the trash. So Ali, do you have anything else to add, or Yana, anything else about the focus group?
Yeah, so some other things like that was also brought up, that some of the attendees thought that having an assembly would be a great way to like bring like a spotlight onto the issue of the trash. And also another thing that we took away from that is people don't understand how much money really goes into the keeping the facilities like in check, and how much it would cost to actually replace them. And they also don't really understand how close it is to being shut down, because of how consistent this has become a problem with DPW, and also coaching associations are getting just frustrated with this issue. So I think that that was a major takeaway of that focus group.
Yana or Catherine, anything to add to that?
I feel like you guys pretty much covered it. Also, if I'm glitching, please let me know. I can see me glitching on my screen. But yeah, I think you guys covered it. I mean, the assembly, I know they also noted having like a respected teacher advocate this issue to get, because once like someone that you trust and respect advocates this issue, I feel like it will make you want to or be more inspired to act on it as also. So that's another thing they brought up.
Yeah, and I know some of the attendees also talked about maybe forming a group or a club that would go out once or twice a week or every other week, whatever they felt was necessary, to go and pick up the trash. But we talked about how we want to stop the problem at the source so it doesn't even happen, but how that can kind of be like a backup plan. Now, it's always good to have a backup plan. Catherine, anything from you?
Yeah, so I'm wondering what the next steps are, because I feel like there were 3 or 4 action items that can happen. With I know Dan McGrath is very excited to take the next steps, and then I'm Madeline. Madeline, are you our only Galvin student here today? Yeah, so I don't know if there are any upcoming assemblies or anything with the 7th and 8th graders or teen times, but maybe the youth even identified the 2 adults that they wanted to deliver this message to them. They thought would be the best bearers of this information. So even those talking points and slides could be assembled if there's something coming up. Madeline, can you think of anything?
Assemblies or meetings soon.
Yeah, any speakers or anything?
Tomorrow, people from the high school are coming down to talk to the 8th grade about clubs that we can join and stuff like that. But I don't, like 7th grade, I don't think we'll be at that.
Okay.
And I'm not sure of, there'll probably be one soon, considering like it's the end of the year and stuff, but nothing specific comes to mind.
Okay. So maybe we can touch base on that, because it would be good to address it now, kind of going into the nice weather, the end of the year and into the summer. I know Dan McGrath is really concerned about that. So, and then what do we think the next steps are as far as the increased barrels and the signage?
Yeah, I think first we should reach out to Mr. McGrath and just tell him that the focus group was really successful, kind of talk about the ideas that they presented and what we as a group might think like would be the most valuable of those ideas. And then maybe we can work with him on what would be practical for him, what might be a good like short-term fix, but then something we can work on long-term. Does that sound good to everybody? Any other input?
So we'll have the Dan McGrath meeting, and then the school piece is a little different.
Mhm.
Who's gonna set up the Dan McGrath meeting? Is there anyone? Should we ask Nick too? Because he's the liaison. Okay.
Yeah, I think Nick might be a great idea.
And who wants to set up something with the Galvin administration? Madeline, you can do that.
Yeah, I would just need to know specifically who I'm emailing and stuff like that, but I could definitely do that.
Okay, so maybe we can set up a time for our Galvin Youth Council members to meet after school. With you, Jenna, Nick, Marie. That'd be great.
Great. Anything else about recreation department? Any other ideas about kind of the communication piece of it? All right, awesome. And we'll definitely keep everybody updated, even if you're not like directly involved with the communication. Because I feel like this is like such a really big issue that could really impact a lot of people if we don't stop it. So yeah, awesome. So next up, I just want to talk about the new member application. So we did extend the deadline to this Friday rather than last Friday to give some people more time to apply. I haven't heard the total number of applicants we have so far. Catherine, did you ever hear back from Sherry about that?
She said she'd gotten some in, but she said if it's anything like last year, she'll get a bunch tomorrow.
Makes sense. We are teenagers, so I tend to do things at the last minute. So I'm sure a lot of people are the same.
I hope several of you are planning on getting your applications in again, so.
Yeah.
Also, just to be clear, waiting until the last minute is not just a teenager thing.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of adults do it. I know my parents do.
But I do know of 2 teens that were doing it up until the last minute and got it in too late and didn't get in last time. So don't wait too much.
Definitely. Yeah, and I'd say maybe reach out tonight or early tomorrow. Maybe set a goal of reaching out to 3 friends and just asking them if they're interested, seeing if they have any questions about it. Because I really feel like the more, I would say, like the more diverse the perspective, the better the outcome. So I will let everybody know how the process is going. Again, I really want to keep that open and transparent and make sure we're all involved in it, but also keeping some level of, I wouldn't say confidentiality, but some level of respect, I guess. I don't know what the right word would be. So just to refresh kind of what we talked about with it last meeting. So if you are on the youth council, you'll fill out the application and you can, doing the interview is optional. I feel like I know all of you really well. I think Yana knows all of you really well. So we don't feel like that's super necessary. But for people that are not on the youth council, they'll fill out the application and also be asked to sign up for an interview. We're going to ask some questions like, why do you like to be on the youth council? What do you feel like you can bring to the group? And just stuff like that. Maybe a goal they have or the ideal liaison position. Very similar to what you all did with Jack, Alyssa, and Anthony. And I'm definitely going to talk to them about it, see if there's anything that didn't go well or that did go well that we can keep or change, because I think it worked out pretty well. Does anybody have any feedback on the application process from when you did it that you think would be helpful to us, or any suggestions or anything? Yeah, Ellie.
Well, I actually just have a question. Since this is my first year on the youth council, I just wasn't sure, how does the liaisons work? Do you get to pick your same committee next year, or do you get to change it? Do you have a choice? I just wasn't sure about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think some people changed, because I know I was on school committee and then I went to town council this year. Catherine, do you want to speak a little bit to that? I don't think we really have like a set rule, I guess would be my answer.
Yeah, I mean, basically you can, so what we did last year, I don't know if you remember at the orientation, hopefully we'll have the orientation in person again. I had people rank their top 3 liaison choices, and some people weren't sure, and then we matched you. But if you're really passionate about something, say, you really think you should be liaison with X, Y, or Z, you can send me an email and I can make sure that happens. But sometimes we have a lot of people interested in certain groups, but you never know. So like you never know that we happen to partner this year with veterans. We partnered with Council on Aging. So you never know which relationships will provide some opportunity to collaborate.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. That it makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, it was a great question. Also, if you have any suggestions of other liaison positions that you think would be a good fit to have a youth perspective, like I know we talked when Thomas met with Betsy Sheeran at the town clerk's office, maybe we thought town hall or the town clerk would be a great liaison position. So if there's anything like that at all, please reach out to us, because I just want to make the next term as successful as possible. And also talking about that, we will need a new chair and vice chair. So if you're interested in maybe taking on a leadership role, definitely think about that. I can share out, we created a document that I think I sent out at the beginning of the term, just kind of listing and going through what is involved with each position. So how the chair gives a little less input and more facilitates conversations, and how the vice chair kind of helps out the chair with doing like the agendas and the meeting minutes. And something to also think about is if we want to keep like a secretary position or keep the clerk as it is, but that's also something you can figure out within the next term. So definitely think about those leadership positions. And I'll try to remember to send that document out soon. But there's nothing you have to decide on right now, but definitely keep it in the back of your head. All right. Anything else about applications or the new term? Nothing. And just to remind you, our term together ends on June 30th. So that's when like Yana and I and Nick will no longer be members of the youth council. But I'm not going to talk about it yet because I'll get sad. So yeah, anything else? Yeah, Madeline.
Will we be in person or hybrid for next term, or did we want to try and get like one of our last meetings hybrid or in person, like just kind of once or something?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm hoping to have our last meeting, or maybe like a little, we'd have to abide by the public meeting law, or the open meeting law, but maybe have some kind of get together after, because I feel like I've never actually met some of you in person. And then I think as far as next term goes, we would just have to see, because I know that the state, or maybe not the state, but I know that there's some guidance between what would be like, I don't know, Catherine, if you want to word this better, but like what would be allowed as an in-person meeting just with like COVID and everything, but town council.
But we can meet in person. It's just what we have to, how Mr. Chimes, you can chime in on this. It's how it's viewed. It has to be public.
Right.
Zoomed. Is that correct?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is have every meeting have a Zoom option to it, so that, you know, even if folks are meeting in person, so for example, the town council and school committee, you know, generally meet in person, but there still is the opportunity for both kind of members of those committees to Zoom in if they need to, as well as for the public. So that's generally how we try to set those meetings up. Most of the committees, quite frankly, seem to really like doing the virtual meetings. And so there aren't many committees that have done, you know, sort of a hybrid, you know, Zoom and in-person approach, but you know, it's certainly doable. It takes, you know, the logistics are a little bit more complicated, but it's definitely doable.
I could see us doing it every other meeting in person. So we have one meeting a month in person. I really think it makes a big difference for, you know, I meet with the youth action team, and that's in person, and it's, you know, before the meeting, there's laughs, you know, it's nice to have that dynamic. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like one of, you know, I don't love the term silver lining when talking about the pandemic, but I feel like something that would be good to stay is the Zoom option. Like, I feel like it's really convenient, especially with people that aren't able whether that's a disability or kind of like an accessibility issue, I feel like it's really accessible to everybody, or at least as accessible as it can be. And schedule wise, especially being the age that we are, we're really busy. So that's definitely something that we'll think about like for the next term. But we'll work out something to hopefully have like an in-person, maybe outdoors at the lake or in the civic center, for like kind of a last hurrah, for the last term. All right. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question? Cool. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. Awesome. Anything else about new member applications or the next term? All right, so next up, we have liaison updates. Does anybody want to give us a brief update for their liaison position? Anything that's coming up?
Well, I just wanted to reiterate what we talked about a little bit before, that I'll be doing a presentation to the school committee on Tuesday. So if you guys wanted to tune in on WCAT to that. So.
Yes. Yeah. I might try to make it in person to watch, but I'll definitely be watching. I'm really excited for that. So I'm the liaison to the town council. So I went to town meeting and I was able to see Mr. Chines. I went with Jack. It was really exciting because I could vote in it for the first time. I've been to a few before, but it was really cool to vote. So we talked a lot about, there are a bunch of different items on the warrant. The biggest one was probably the town's budget, which includes the schools, things like the library. And then there were also some things about like zoning and kind of where different like borders are in town and how that gets kind of distinguished, I guess. And that also kind of relates to the budget. There was some stuff about like road work. It was a really, really fascinating process, and it is on WCAT, or at least if it's not, it will be soon if you want to watch it, because the process is really fascinating. And I was able to see some people do public comment, which was really interesting. So yeah, Mr. Chines, do you want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say one of the folks that did public comment was Jack, and so a youth council alum gave his maiden speech at town meeting, which was great. No, I think you hit the nail on the head, Lauren. So the spring town meeting that we have generally is focused mostly on the budget, and so that was a lot of the what was on the warrant this time. When we get to the fall, there'll be some other more sort of policy type things that come onto the warrant, including, probably some other, bylaw changes that get proposed and things like that. One thing that will be coming up, I don't know if it will be on the fall town meeting or if we'll have a special town meeting, will be the high school and the vote for funding for that. So that'll either be in November or potentially kind of its own town meeting at some point. And so definitely encourage everyone to participate in that and come and vote and speak. It was great. Jack did a great job, and it was great to hear his voice there.
Yeah, definitely. And, just as a reminder, to go to town meeting, you don't have to be of voting age. The only thing that voting age, if you're not of voting age, prohibits you to do is vote. So you can still be there. You can still participate in public comment. And it's just a really great opportunity for civic engagement. So any questions about town meeting, kind of how it works? Madeline?
I was actually there for like the first half, then I had to leave early for homework, but it was really interesting to just see the differences between how a town meeting works versus how other meetings like youth council are run, and see kind of a different side of town government.
Yeah, definitely. I thought of that too. It's the way our town is set up in that way is really unique compared to some other towns. So yeah, it's a really, really fascinating process. I was sad that it was over, but it was like 2 hours, so it was time for me to do my homework too.
I will say that was a relatively short town meeting too. There wasn't a lot of discussion or comment. There wasn't as many questions as I would have expected on some of the budgetary items. I mean, we did some, pretty significant things. I mean, certainly the school department budget is a pretty large budget. We made some significant additions to the health department budget, which I am really excited went through, but I was surprised that didn't actually generate more questions. So this was a quick one. They usually, unfortunately, are not quite that quick, but again, good opportunity to kind of check it out on CAT's YouTube page and see what went down.
Absolutely. Great. Any other liaison updates? Anything else? Awesome. All right.
Oh, I just had a question. Paige, are you still doing the Wakefield vision?
Yeah, I'm still on it. I just haven't been able to make it to the past, I think, meeting. But
Okay.
there's another one coming up soon.
Great. Excellent. That's great. And then I know Bella and Paige were talking to the Wakefield Garden Club. Did you have any update on that yet, Paige?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, so stay tuned. I think Bella's going to send everyone an email because the Wakefield Garden Club reached out to the Youth Council they need some help. Just a second, I have the email from them. They are looking for some help with some town conservation efforts and planting local pollinator gardens and things like that and creating signs. So it could be a really interesting project for a few people that are interested in that.
Okay.
Great. Anything else? Yeah, Catherine.
I have one other something I heard today from a young person in Billerica said that they set up their youth council based on the Wakefield Youth Council. And he reached out and said they were so inspired by Wakefield that they developed a youth council and they used a lot of our guidance and everything. And he said he wanted to pass along his thanks to you all for the work that you've done.
Wow, that's really awesome to hear. That would be really cool if we could maybe like partner with them on an initiative or something like that. And I feel like that's also a really great reminder that the work that we're doing isn't just in Wakefield, it's all around. So that's really
I think
awesome.
we've had a few other youth councils young people reach out to us. So Ollie, maybe that's something you put in your presentation too.
Great. All right. Anything else before we talk about the next meeting date? All right. So our next meeting, if we're going by what we usually do, which is the first and third Tuesday, I know this week was a little bit different. It looks like that will be Tuesday, June 7th at 7 p.m. Does that work for everybody? And I'll send out a reminder in the agenda beforehand. Yeah, Madeline.
That's the day that I leave for Washington, D.C. So I don't think that I'd be able to make it to that.
Okay, no worries. I love DC. It's so nice. Yeah, and I know it's a super busy time of year. Yana, do you have a conflict?
Yeah, I probably won't be able to make it either. I'm also going away, but
No
I don't know
worries.
if it
No.
will other people's schedules, but just thought I'd put that out there.
Perfect. Yeah, so maybe why don't we plan on the 7th, and I'll send out an email and just ask people to respond if they can't attend, and then we can kind of adjust accordingly. But we'll plan on the 7th for 7 p.m. the same time. And I believe that will probably be our second to last meeting, which is crazy. I feel like this year went by so fast. All right, awesome. Anything else before we adjourn the meeting? All right. Thank you again, Mr. Ingles, for coming, and Mr. Chines for always being here. It's very nice to have adult support in this kind of work. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. All right. Yana,
Yes.
Ali,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Paige,
Yes.
Sophie, Ellie,
Yes.
Madeline.
Yes.
All right, and I believe, did I miss anybody? Let me just check. I don't think I did. All right, so our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming, and I'll be in touch about our next meeting.